Hello, this is William with CommanderCast.com, and we're here with another edition of the Alpha build. You know, I'm really excited to go ahead and do this. I waited a little bit for the initial posting of the first video, so that I could go ahead and get some feedback from a couple of the people I work with over at CommanderCast.com, and got some props. This was something I was planning on doing anyway, so it wasn't really so much a hey, this is a good idea, or what, William, you're stupid, no, don't do this. But so much a, okay, what am I doing, and how can I do this better? So if you guys have comments or critiques or ideas for stuff that you would like to see in these videos, feel free to leave a comment underneath the video or hit us up on Twitter. We're at CommanderCast on Twitter. You can also message us on the Facebook page. So we're here with our Arabian Nights edition. And before I go ahead and get into the changes that came in this deck between this and the alpha version, I want to go ahead and address one of the issues that I thought of as I was editing the videos and getting them ready for YouTube with alpha. Alpha through revised, I want to point out. Because alpha through revised essentially had the same card pool. Yeah, there were some cards missing in alpha that didn't make it until beta, and there are cards in revised that got cut out from alpha. But they're essentially the same set. So not going to really worry about that. We're going to go into Arabian Nights. And one of the issues that I thought of, thinking about this long term, was the videos are going to get kind of boring if I'm only changing out like 2 or 3 cards. Because if the deck is running to a point where I only swap out 2 or 3 cards at a time, then that means that we're at the point where we're more or less achieved our goal of, yeah, let's go ahead and make the most efficient version of this deck that we can. So, but it doesn't really make for a compelling videos per se. We get to see what 1 or 2 new cards get to do, and that's about it. I'm hoping to try and really showcase a lot of the cool stuff and tech that we can get into this deck, which means that we don't have to try out stuff that might not be the more optimal build. So, what I'm electing to do is I'm going to keep a running tally of like the 10 most replaceable cards in a given deck. And we're going to go ahead and swap those cards out for the new cards that kind of do something different-ish. If it's more of a one-for-one swap, like, oh, this is removal, and oh, hey, we just have better removal, then we can go ahead and make that. But the core of the deck is going to stay in place for what makes the deck run. It's all the fringe things that, kind of enable it or accentuate the main strategy that we're going to look to kind of change up. Maybe I'll try out a different balance of removal spells to, say, reanimation effects, or maybe I want to try more draw cards rather than less. The bottom line is I'm going to have the 10 most replaceable cards in a given deck, and if we need to figure out what we would cut to test out some new cards, then those are the cards that are going to be the first to go. And if a card doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out and we can move on to the next stage and just leave it behind. And if there was a card that we end up cutting from that 10 most cuttable and we just end up really, really missing it, well, then that's good information too, because then that means that we found something that probably shouldn't be on that top 10 list, or that we just haven't found a better option yet. We're going to find cards that can protect Avacyn a lot better than, say, it's like Death Ward. Right now, Death Ward is kind of a way to protect Avacyn so that she can worry about protecting everyone else. But we may find better tech, only to realize that tech wasn't actually better and we just want Death Ward. Ergo, Death Ward continues to prove its existence. So that's enough about that particular notion. So let's go ahead and get into the real reason why we're here with Arabian Nights. So with Arabian Nights, we finally have enough cards, moto-wise, to have what I would consider a more regular deck. More regular in the sense that we have a more even balance of lands and spells that we want to do something with. But you may notice that we have, just more lands. The thing is, though, those aren't really lands so much as they're uncounterable spells. So let's go ahead and take a quick look. We ended up cutting 7 of the planes for just stuff. And I was contemplating cutting more land slots, but when I looked through Arabian Nights, there are a lot of lands that kind of do something odd or different that I wanted to try out. The first one is going to be Oasis. Tap to prevent the next 1 damage that be dealt to target creature this turn. That's a very, very small and nominal effect, but I'm curious to see if just having that 1 damage out can mess with combat math, especially on something that doesn't need to survive a turn to use it, like the Semite Healer does. So we're gonna have that out. It doesn't produce mana, so if we need to hit land drops and we need to make mana, it's gonna stay stuck in our hand. But if that's the case, we'll just end up cutting it for a more useful spell when we get to, I believe it's going to be Antiquities next. So we go on to Island of Wak Wak, which is another land that doesn't really produce mana. Instead, it has tap, target creature with flying has base power 0 until end of turn. So Avacyn's going to go ahead and protect us on the with all of our grounders or anything like that. But then this also lets her get into combat with minimum consequence. Tap down, that big dragon or that demon. Just give them 0 power. Even if Avacyn can't kill it, she can still block it and they'll bounce off of each other, assuming that they don't have any equipment or +1/+1 counters, or God forbid, some random ass combat trick, anything like that. So this will be very interesting to see. Next we have is actually really, really expensive in paper, Diamond Valley. This is one of the great things about Moto is that, some of these cards just don't see play in any format. And because you only need so many copies in your collection, at the most you would only ever need a playset of anything that's not like a Relentless Rats or a Shadowborn Apostle or basic lands or snow lands. So Diamond Valley, cards like Diamond Valley end up getting, sold back to bots, and they get recycled and turned it into very cheap fodder. So Diamond Valley is just tap sacrifice creature. You gain life equal to the sacrifice creature's toughness, which is fine because we're playing cards like Castle, which give untapped creatures an additional 2. So an additional 2 life it's not insignificant. We're already sacrificing creatures with a big ass, and this is one of those sack outlet type things. Normally you would have this. It used to be you would have something like this to help get rid of your commander in case they were being threatened by Tuck, by Ablation, or Terminus, or anything like that. Now, though, Moto's finally caught up, and the Tuck rule just says, yeah, no, if it'll go back to your deck, you can put your commander back into your command zone, which is what we plan on doing with Avacyn. We do have creatures, though, and we do have 1 or 2 reanimation effects, so it's going to be a lot better to hold that up, sacrifice a creature if they would die to removal, Swords to Plowshares or Path to Exile, and then get some sort of value off of them. This one's just a silly card. It's Desert. This one actually does make mana, though, so it's not taking up a spell slot like the other ones are. It's tap, add colors to your mana pool, and you can actually see that they have the colorless, the symbol for colorless right there on Moto. It looks very nice on some of these older cards. So you can also tap it to deal 1 damage to target attacking creature, but you only do it during the end of combat step. This is more or less a joke card, but it's going to be funny to see if, during the course of this, the Desert actually does end up getting there. The only reason I can see cutting Desert anytime soon is because we just need more white sources, and that would happen if we include more utility lands like Desert, which I decided to peek forward and look at Antiquities to kind of see what will be coming up after this, and there are some really cool and noteworthy. I don't want to say staple, but there are some very potent cards and I think, I'll just call them what they are. There's some very staple cards in Antiquities as far as lands go. One in particular that I'm very excited to have. So as long as we don't have too many of them, we should probably get to see a lot of lulls with Desert. I mean, to be fair, Avacyn does require 3 white symbols in order to use her effect. So we'll see where that goes. The next one, though, is Bazaar of Baghdad. You see this a lot in like the vintage reanimation, or not vintage dredge. That's what it is. Vintage dredge. Tap, draw 2 cards, then discard 3 cards. White decks need more draw power, so I'm interested to see how well this goes. Particularly since we do just have a lot of cards that end up being dead. For example, any of these circle protections just become dead cards if none of those colors are present at the table. So I actually was tempted to cut the circle protections because I just really, really don't like dead cards late in game. And that's sometimes what these were in the first part. I was actually considering keeping more planes and just cutting some of these. But I decided that the incidental parts of keeping up mana, to prevent damage, just kind of minimizing absence of necessity, was worth it enough to keep them in for at least a few sets longer, depending on what else we find. Plus, there are just worse cards. Speaking of worse cards, I mentioned we cut 7 planes, but we also cut 4 other cards for a total of 11 cuts. The first one was the Hive, the 5-mana artifact that was pay 5 tap, put a 1/1 B token onto the battlefield. That was just the worst. I did not enjoy having to play that. If the 1/1 B, it could have been alright if I had, like Avacyn out at the time, and I needed to stop the Grave Hack trigger that we saw, just make a B in response and not sack Avacyn. That's fine. But it's 5 mana to do it. You can only do it once. You have to tap it to use it. So unless you have, something like from Antiquities to untap artifacts, it doesn't do anything. And that would take so much mana to do. I mean, if you could make infinite mana, you could make infinite Bs. But why would you spend your time doing something like that? The other 3 cuts were the Cormor's Bell, which is the artifact that turns all the swamps into 1/1 creatures. And I really didn't want that because it just creates a certain kind of impression. It gives the impression that you're playing the Elish Norn combo to lock people out, and I want to avoid that at all costs. It would be funny to go ahead and play Cormor's Bell and then Wrath of God, and then just kind of one-sided Armageddon any black players, or if someone had an Urborg out, something like that. But that's not the kind of magic that I want Avacyn to be playing. The Copper Tablet was the one that dealt damage, I think, at each upkeep or something. I can't remember exactly what it does. It was some really, really nominal effect. It's something that I could see in like the Olivia 1000 Paper Cuts control deck, but it's not something that Avacyn's going to be seeing, so I gladly cut that. And the last one I cut was the J and Datum, which, again, the deck wants draw, but at 5 mana, we really just can't afford to be spending that amount just to draw a single card. There are so many other things I could be doing. I could even, the incredible mana cost of not getting, 10 mana is not worth 1 card. 10 mana is not worth 1 B token. And those cards, other cards that were just gonna fresh me on, and more so than these ones, because at least when they're relevant, they are potentially incredibly relevant. The J&J Tome just took way too much effort and time to do it. The Howling Mine did its job very nicely in the last game we played for the Alpha Belt, so we just got rid of the Tome. The other ones on the chopping block currently are the other hate card type things. We still have Conversion, we still have Karma, and those are cards that I'm going to be looking to get rid of. Armageddon will be cut at some point when we have better win conditions, I want to say. Right now, Armageddon has to be a win condition because we just don't have enough power in the deck, unfortunately. So let's go ahead and look at some of the other stuff we added. Let's go ahead and look. Let's see. So the first thing that made me really happy was that we just got creatures. We just got more creatures, which the deck desperately wanted. The first one is going to be the Brass Man. It's just a 1/3 for 1, and it doesn't untap during the untap step, but it's a 1/3 for 1 that could come down and block some other stuff. And it's just another guy. Just having more creatures, more people to protect, for Avacyn to protect. And why is it saying Brass Man is not in my collection? I have Brass Man. Cards not in my collection? That's silly. I just got the cards off of MTGO Trader, so I know I have Brass Man because it's a Time Spiral card. Yeah. Let's see, Diamond Valley. Ebony Horse is another interesting one. If I can find it. Ebony Horse. 3 cards of artifact. Pay 2, tap, untap target attacking creature you control. Prevent all combat damage to be dealt to and dealt by that creature this turn. So if we make a bad So if we make a bad attack, or they surprise us, or anything like that, we can really go ahead and, well, hold on, let's see, open new copy. It's bizarre. Why are they coming up with this stuff? Does Ruin have that? Oh, okay. Bizarre. So, yes, the Ebony Horse is going to save us from some bad blocks. We've also got Eye for an Eye, which is a 2-mana instant. Next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn. Instead, that source deals that much damage to you, and Eye for an Eye deals that much damage to that source's controller. That is going to, let's see. So you go ahead, you have a really big thing, you attack in, and then suddenly, boom, it's thrown way back at the other person. And this is the kind of effect that I want to have in Avacyn. That kind of, I don't, redirecty justice type thingy. The idea that I can mess around with combat and save someone just because I can, or because I want to try and keep them into the game, or I want to play the savior for the deck. Especially if they're doing something that I need done in order to help me win the game. We've also got Flying Carpet, which is a 4-mana artifact that has 2 tap. Target creature gains flying until end of turn. And I love that flavor text. It says, "Whee!" I made sure to specifically get the 7th edition one because of that flavor text. And it actually goes okay with the Island of Walk Walk. So it becomes a 2-mana, well, basically 3 lands, or, well, I guess if you wanted to say one effect, it would probably be templated something like pay 3, tap, target creature deals no damage this turn, or something like that. Something close. But there is a bit of a wombo combo right there. Jandor's Saddlebags is one of the other ones. If I could just find that one real quick. Jandor's Saddlebags right here. Pay 3, untap target creature. That's going to actually help out, considering that we have Meekstone, and we have bigger creatures that we want to get in, like Personal Incarnation, Clockwork Beast, Obsidious Golem. It's just going to, let's see, Brassman only requires 1 to untap. Just bigger creatures that we want to get through. Because remember, one of the problems that we had with the last game that we played in the Alpha run was that if we had swung in with our Personal Incarnation, our Clockwork Beast, he would have just blocked with some Sphinxes, and then our guys would have been tapped, and we would have had no way to punch through. And he would have just kept milling us for game. So, the Saddlebags is going to help us get around the Meekstone. And let's see, we only have one other card that I want to mention, which is the Moorish Cavalry. Just a 3/3 for 4. It has Trample, oddly enough, probably because it has a horse. Whew! There were, of course, more cards with banding and that type of stuff that came out with Arabian Nights, but Moto doesn't have them. They weren't reprinted in, Masters Collections or anything like that. Most of these cards that I have, that apparently Moto says I do not have, is because they were in Time Spiral, or, they just barely got reprinted in 7th or 8th edition, which I think 8th edition was supposed to be like a greatest hits type thing for all the sets at that point. So we do have enough editions. We do have a functional deck. Let's go ahead and talk about, well, actually, one of the other things I wanted to do that I forgot to do at the beginning of this video was talk a little bit about the history. Not really a history per se, but just kind of a brief history for people who don't know about the set. Alpha was, of course, the original set, and that one came out in August of 1993. Arabian Nights came out in December 1993, and this is a very quick rush job by what was, I want to say, Garfield Games, because Wizards of the Coast was operating out of their president's basement at the time. And of course, this is the one with the infamous, we almost had a purple back, and a back that was unique to each set so that you couldn't, mix the cards together. Very happy that they decided, hey, we want to go ahead and keep things uniform so that we can mix all the cards together. So that's it for our deck tech. Let's go ahead and get right into the games. This is William with Rogue Deck. I'm sorry, I almost said Rogue Deck. Apologies to Kevin for that. I watch a lot of Rogue builder. I watch his videos. He's actually the one who got me into Soul Sisters. And I'm doing these kind of in the style that he does his videos. So, this is William with CommanderCast, and let's go ahead and go into some games.